All right, welcome back. Happy Saturday. So in this video, I thought I would talk about a couple of issues that have been brought up by people on YouTube and Discord in relation to big money and bank accounts and brokerage accounts, specifically moving money around, doing stuff like that, paying taxes, all that kind of stuff. When you start to make big money, which hopefully a lot of you are going to be making big money. I've said, and I believe this to be true, like they're going to be a lot of newly minted millionaires and decamillionaires in this bull run as a result of grayscale. So kudos to you. I've seen a lot of videos actually from on other channels where people just hit $1 million or more in their grayscale portfolios. And I've seen people on Discord with multiple million. So it's really cool. And don't worry, don't sweat it if you don't have that. If you practice good money management skills, you'll be there next bull run. So don't sweat it, man. Everybody has to start somewhere. And this is just a phenomenal asset for growing rich. So anyway, let me talk about bank accounts and having a lot of money and the things that you can run into. Okay, so the government likes to be the quote-unquote protector of the people, right? So they put it's usually the Democrats that put these kind of rules into place to protect the public, quote unquote, protect the public against bad people like money launderers, drug lords, things like this. And so they set up restrictions in our financial system that basically end up targeting pretty much everybody. I think there was something in the past couple of years. I'm pretty sure they have this set up. I'm not positive. Don't count me as a source of ultimate truth, obviously. But I think there's like a $600 limit. Like if you transfer more than $600 to somebody, like write a check or do a wire or something like $600 or more, they consider that to be suspicious, which is ridiculous. I mean, anybody who has to pay a mortgage or a rent check is going to be exceeding that pretty much, So why they consider that to be suspicious is beyond me. It's just ridiculously low. Also, they've got these anti-money laundering schemes set up where it's like for example, if you try to deposit or withdraw even more than, I think it's like $10,000 from a bank account or into a bank account if you're depositing it, they flag that as being suspicious. And I think they have to file an SAR, a suspicious activity report. And here's the problem with this. Like, okay, so anyway, I've never been contacted by anybody that says, hey, the activity that you've got going on in your bank account is suspicious. But I know behind the scenes, they're having to file suspicious activity reports all the time. I mean, I'm moving money in and out of my business. It's like to pay taxes, to pay for stuff, and it's transferring money into my brokerage accounts. It's exceeding $10,000 quite often. So they're having to do this. It's whatever. I don't care. It's like as long as they don't hold me up from me doing my job, I'm not going to be pissed off. But unfortunately, this $10,000 limit actually gets some people in trouble. And it hurts small business owners. I've heard, you can find this stuff on Google, or not on Google, on YouTube, and on Google too, where small business owners get their funds locked up, their bank accounts frozen because of what's called structuring. Structuring is essentially, for example, if you deposit $3,000 one day into your bank account and then $4,000 a couple days later, and then another $4,000 a couple days later, they could say, well, you're trying to be basically a drug lord, a money launderer, and bypass the $10,000 limit, and we're going to call that structuring. Like you tried to structure your deposits in such a way that you try to get away from being detected by our systems. And it's ridiculous. It's catching, unfortunately, a lot of small people, a lot of small business owners, and this is not what this stuff was intended to do. This is the unintended consequences of bad policy. I mean, the biggest money launderers out there are the U.S. government. That's it. The U.S. government. That's it. It's absolutely it. You look at the history of what we've done throughout the world, man, we are the biggest money launderers. Our government is, of anybody. Like, we're the biggest drug lords. It's like the biggest drug mules. It's like the stuff that's happened in Afghanistan and South and Central America. Yeah. You research that stuff, we are not the good guys. We are not the good guys. But we want to we want to make it look like we have Pablo Escobars all over the U.S. And so we're going to crack down on everybody. So if you transact more than $600, well, you must be a Pablo Escobar, right? Or the next up and coming Pablo Escobar, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And a $10,000 limit, again, is ridiculous. It's like, A lot of people don't have $10,000, but a lot of people do. And like you pay your property taxes. It's like that's, for a lot of people, that's more than $10,000 in a lot of places. You know, it's like it. Sometimes it's very expensive, and it's like this. Why should it be suspicious? It's like you go to buy a vehicle, like just not even like a sports car, like go buy a Jeep for like 80 grand or something. And it's like, is that going to be flagged as suspicious? Like, oh my God, you know, somebody's spending like 70 or 80 grand on a Jeep. It's ridiculous. But anyways, you run into this. So those are some of the things that, if you start to make a ton of money, which, you know, if you haven't made a ton of money before, but now you're making a ton of money out of Grayscale, you might get some questions from your bank as to like, where's this money coming from? Here is something that you could do to just bypass all the bullshit. Okay, so, all your Grayscale funds are in a brokerage account, like mine are in Schwab and Fidelity. So, and I assume this works for other brokerage accounts. I don't know for sure. Probably just check and see if they can do this. But Schwab and Fidelity allow you to set up basically checking accounts for your individual brokerage accounts. So you can get a check card, you can get a checkbook, and on Fidelity, you can also open a separate cash management account that acts just solely like a checking account. You get a check card for it, a checking account. And Fidelity and Schwab know where your money's coming from because they see it. It's coming from Grayscale funds or whatever else you're invested in, if you're cashing out of them, and being transferred to either the cash management account in Fidelity or just sitting in your brokerage account in Schwab. And then you're writing a check from that place. So there's no, they don't have any questions about where it's coming from and all that kind of stuff. I heard somebody on Discord say they transferred some assets, transferred some stock from another brokerage account, I think to Fidelity. And Fidelity was like, well, you need to prove that this isn't money laundering, which they didn't never ask me. I transferred millions of dollars of stock to Fidelity when I was getting rid of downsizing my TD Ameritrade account, and they never did that for me. But I don't, if somebody asks you to prove that you're not money laundering, I don't even know how the hell you do that. I mean, do you have to show them every single receipt, every single transaction ever? How you made money? It seems a little daunting. I think the onus should be on whoever's doing the accusing. Like, you have to show that there actually is money laundering. I think that's the way it should be. Again, it's the whole principle of like innocent until proven guilty, right? You shouldn't just have a charge lobbied against you and then have to defend yourself in such a way that it's very hard to defend yourself. And this is what I don't like about the financial system. Like, even if you have a lot of money, even if you have a lot of assets, the financial system can screw you over. You can't even be like totally independent of the system by just relying on a native cryptocurrency, which is an alternative asset that allows you to do that theoretically. But at the end of the day, we all have to pay bills in fiat currency. So we have to be able to cash out of our cryptocurrency. So it doesn't, there's still gateways that can be shut down for each of us. We might get our Coinbase accounts locked down because we're selling too much crypto or whatever. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen to me. I've heard of other people that have gotten their accounts locked down or suspended because they look suspicious. I don't know why. So I can't really speak to that, but it just gives you an example of how things are sometimes a little bit challenging. Now, what I would say broadly is that as you start to make more money and have more money in your bank accounts and brokerage accounts, you start to get benefits. Like, you'll get contacted by private wealth groups, and you get their special phone numbers to call in to, like Schwab and Fidelity and stuff like that. It's like you get access to the private wealth group, which you don't when you just have a little bit in there. And so things get easier for you. And I think it's like the more money you have, the more they leave you alone. I feel like they unjustly go after the little guy. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion on things, but that's what I kind of feel like. I want to say a couple things about questions that were asked in relation to brokerage accounts and bank accounts. Well, specifically in brokerage accounts, actually. I've already talked about bank accounts. So, bank accounts, one thing I wanted to mention is I would recommend having more than one bank account, like when you have significant money. It's significant being over $1 million. And if you have over 10 million, then you definitely need to, you shouldn't be leaving it in the bank account unless you have like a ton of money. You want to leave that mostly in investments, but you want to have multiple bank accounts. And let's say, you've got a checking account right now that you use to get paid, from your job, to do stuff like that, just to handle everyday expenses, right? But if you also get a bank account of sorts through Schwab or Fidelity or your brokerage account, well, that serves as another checking account, right? So it allows you to have multiple methods of writing checks, getting things done. Set this stuff up, folks, before you have a problem. What if one day your bank gets shut down and it goes bonk, and it's a couple days before the FDIC, I guess, does its thing and gets the bank back up and running. It gets taken over by somebody else. Make sure you've got at least two checking accounts set up for yourself, so you've got some backup. Like, you always want that. And I would suggest this too for brokerage accounts. Like, if you're only in E-Trade or only in Schwab or only in Fidelity, once you get more than, I would say, especially like $5 million or more of assets, I would highly recommend that you split them up between different brokerage accounts. So, because you don't want to be running into problems if one broker has an outage, right? If one broker has an outage, you don't want to have a problem. You don't want to have a problem if one broker is like, hey, this looks like money laundering, we're going to freeze your account for a while, which I don't think they will once you start to get to multiple millions, which is the irony of this. But they'll only do that when you're doing tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. But get multiple accounts, and so let's say if you've got everything sitting right now in Fidelity, for example, or everything in E-Trade. What you can do is, like, if you set up a second account like with Fidelity, well, you open a brokerage account and you can just say, I want to transfer some of my assets from E-Trade to Fidelity, and the process is really simple, and it just takes a couple days to complete. And that way you've got your assets in more than one brokerage account. I would never suggest having only one brokerage account for holding your assets. You really want to split it up. And if you set up a checking account with that Fidelity brokerage, for example, or Schwab brokerage account, or you create a cash management account on Fidelity, well, then it's like you've got another checking account too. So it's in addition to your primary one, which is really nice. And by the way, this is also kind of nice. I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, sometimes banks get like anti-crypto and they won't allow, I think Chase did this, or maybe it was Citibank, maybe it was Chase, I can't remember. They wouldn't allow customers to actually purchase, send money to Coinbase to buy crypto. Well, I'm guessing Fidelity wouldn't be against that. So if you set up that bank account with Fidelity and you got your checkbook and you got your check card, well, then it's like you just connect your Coinbase account to your Fidelity account and you can transfer. You bypass the restrictions that you might have elsewhere. Okay, so that's it. Something else I want to talk about is brokerages and bank accounts in relation to large money transfers, specifically like wire transfers. So some banks, like the bank that I use on a regular basis for everyday bills, has a limitation. They're not able to send wires bigger than like $500,000, which is not a big transfer. If you buy a multi-million-dollar house or a yacht or whatever it is you're buying, you're gonna have to go above that. And you could get around that by doing, a $500,000 transfer per day, for the course of like 4 or 5 days or whatever it takes to actually complete your payment. But some banks have bigger transfer limits. Now, when I was on TD Ameritrade last bull run, they had a really nice wire transfer department. I'm really going to miss them. Actually, I got 40 days left and my account's going to be transferred to Schwab. I'm very sad about this, but yeah, so it's like they had no problem. Like, I was like, okay, I need to transfer a couple $1 million to buy a house, and they're like, okay, just fill out this form, sign it, put a photocopy of your driver's license and fax it to us at this number. And I did that, and then within a day or two, they transferred several $1 million via wire transfer. It was very nice, very convenient. Now, some banks that are bigger, that are national banks, like Bank of America, Chase, Citibank probably have bigger wire transfer limits versus like the bank that I use, which is one that's more just kind of located in the Midwest. But a lot of them probably have bigger wire transfer limits. But check on this. You want to check on this, like if you're buying a house, like for cash. If you buy a house for cash, they're going to demand a wire transfer payment. Now, a lot of times, you know, if it's like under $1 million, you can also say, well, I'll do cashier's checks. And it's like, that's, again, you're in a negotiation. So you can say, well, I'll do it wire transfer or cashier's check, my choice. I purchased one of my homes with that. It was like, I bought it for like $400,000. And I was only able to get like the cashier check limit per day. It was like $250,000. So I just went back the next day and got the remainder amount and then just sent 2 cashier's checks off. And that was sufficient instead of doing a wire transfer. But most places are going to want you to do a wire transfer. So that's it. Also, by the way, if you guys are looking at buying property, and it's an expensive property especially, what's going to be required before you can actually view the house is that you're going to have to submit proof of funds, like proof that you can actually afford it. And when I did it for this place, I think I just sent a screenshot of like my TD Ameritrade brokerage account, and that was sufficient for the homeowner. And they were just like, yeah, that's cool. Because you know, it's like, understandably, you don't want just anybody traipsing through like this place. It's like, no, you're only going to see it if you can actually afford it. So just keep that in mind. Some of those things are going to be required. I think that's what I wanted to talk about. Some of the bullshit things. One story in relation to cash. So having emergency cash is actually, I think, important, and I think everybody should have some. If you end up with a lot of money, like say you end up with $1 million or more from your grayscale profits, you might want to have a couple $1,000s in emergency cash at home, you know. And I don't think you need more than $10,000 for most things, unless, I don't know, something comes up. But for most things, you don't need more than that. But more than 1,000, less than 10 probably is a good reasonable amount. One story that a friend told me, they knew a small business owner who over the course of a couple years had accumulated about $40,000 in cash and kept it in a safe in their business, which maybe wasn't the best idea, but they didn't really know a lot about investing, didn't really trust the bank, stuff like that. So they did that, and one day somebody stole it. And so the owner called the police, and guess what? The police didn't say, okay, we'll get on this. We'll look for the dude who stole this. What they said to the owner was, well, you need to prove how you got this cash. See, they looked at the business owner who had 40 grand in cash as being the criminal. And this is like how they'll look at you. Now, I guarantee you, like if you're rolling up on the marina on a super yacht and you got 40 grand in a suitcase, nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody's going to hassle you about it, right? But if you're a small business owner, right, that's over the course of 4 years accumulated 40 grand in a safe, they're going to look at you like a criminal. How does that feel? See, the thing is, like, this is part of the system. It's like society knows about inequality, and even the justice system, they look at, it's not that they're trying to look down on people who don't have a lot of wealth. I think what the problem is that they're like, well, it's difficult for people who don't have a lot of wealth to become very wealthy. So why would somebody who isn't, very like wealthy, like not in the top 1%, why would you have 40 grand in cash? That's highly unusual. Versus somebody who's in the 0.1%, walking around flaunting a suitcase full of 100 grand, they're not going to give a crap about. Okay, so the system is a little bit unfair, but here's the deal. It gets easier and more fair. I hate to even use that word. It feels wrong to even say that, but it gets better for you the more money you have. Because the more money you have, the more respect you command. Even if that respect is not warranted, that's just the way it goes. Like, folks, we live in a world driven by money. And if you aren't willing to accept that and play by the rules, then you're gonna have a hard time. So it's like you need to play by the rules of money. And the more money you have, the more respected you are, generally speaking. There are always the haters, but fuck that. I mean, I'm talking about the justice system. I'm talking about the financial system. They're gonna respect you more the more money you have, right? Versus like somebody who's like bouncing checks all the time, you know, and can't get their shit together. There's not gonna be a whole lot of respect from the financial system. You know, they're going to be offered payday loans. Do you think anybody in the 1% or 0.1% is being offered payday loans? No, fuck that. No, they're targeting the lower income, which is predatory lending, in my opinion. But that's what happens. It's like the poor get preyed upon. You know, the poor get targeted, and it's only by escaping that. It's only by getting yourself to a better financial situation where you can actually catapult yourself out of that. So always, this is one of the benefits of becoming wealthy. Always work to become wealthy. Always help your kids to become wealthy. Teach them about money and all that kind of stuff. Very, very important. Don't let them become enslaved into the system that basically we all grew up in. You got to watch out for them, protect the next generation, and help the world in a lot of ways. I talked about philanthropy in the last video or two that I was putting out. And it's like, a lot of my money, oh, by the way, so in relation to this, so what I'm going to do is, like, with my accounts at Schwab and Fidelity, I'm going to reserve the Schwab account for basically philanthropic donations. And I'm going to put the money or the assets that I have there into high yield dividend ETFs like FEPI, like some of the yield max ETFs, generate a ton of cash and give that away, right? And then Fidelity is where I'm going to basically, you know, buy assets that grow my wealth, that make it bigger, like for the next bull run. And one of the reasons for that is that Schwab, it's not a big deal. Like, their fees aren't that big, but they charge like $5, $6, $7 or something per trade for for the OTC trades, like for grayscale trusts. And Fidelity doesn't charge you for that, so it's kind of annoying on Schwab things. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna use Schwab for like the dividend ETFs and have that be the philanthropic donation money machine generator right there. I'll have that work that way, and then just use my Fidelity account for grayscale investments next run, and Bitcoin ETFs and all that kind of stuff that I've talked about before, like the crypto related stocks that I'm going to get into. And then when I'm done with the bull run, next bull run, I'm going to, you know, buy some high yield dividend ETFs in my Fidelity account, and I'm going to transfer those assets over to Schwab. Like, rather than, I suppose I could just transfer some of the cash too, because when you do brokerage account transfers, you can transfer cash too. I don't know if there's a limit to how much you can transfer, but or if you need to, or if it's better just to buy the assets. I don't know. I'll find out, I guess. I mean, it's like, I'll probably buy the assets in Fidelity and then just transfer them over to Schwab. Just kind of my thing that I do, or that I'm planning on doing. But that's a long ways out. I mean, that's like 5 years out from now. So I've got a ways to kind of figure that kind of stuff out. But just some thoughts on bank accounts, brokerages, money laundering, you know, suspicious activity reports. The next Pablo Escobar, which is obviously is like your small mom and pop vendor, because obviously that's them if they're getting flagged with their banking institution. I think it's unfair. Like I said, the financial system does punish you, does look at you with kind of the stink eye. If you don't have a lot of money, they won't question you. If you have a ton of money, in my opinion, it's like it's you can call it unfair or not. I don't think it's fair in a way, but it's like, if that's the system and that's kind of how things are set up, then our goal should be to make as much money as possible, to be in the best possible, I guess, class of people. That's what you need to get to, that best financial class of people. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. If you guys have questions or you'd like me to do videos on something else, let me know. I'll probably do 1 or 2 more today on different stuff. People have asked a bunch of questions, so I'll do one soon. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Take care.